Eric Weinstein here is being interviewed. I like him because he shares the same last name as me. However, I do disagree. He's a very intelligent guy, but I disagree with one thing that he says over here, which has to do with the PR campaign of Israel and how much of a failure Israel has been in getting the right PR out. The reality is that the hate for Jews is so strong that that's a lost cause from the start. I think far more important than getting the message out to the world is getting the message out to ourselves. And that message is being proud of who we are and standing firm with what we stand for and not letting the world push us around. That is where we are failing. We don't have to get the message out. In general, you don't have to get the message out so much. What you need to do is let people know who you are by the way you conduct yourself. Then you have the best PR you can possibly have. If we would stop giving into these concessions to buy some time for another few months of peace until rockets start flying in again, and we just say we're totally unacceptable, a single rocket, and we will wreak havoc, and we do that over and over and over again, that is the best PR that we can possibly perform. Here's the interview.
When October the 7th happened, I started doing some press, and I knew we had 3 days, 4 days of grace before somebody says, well, what do you expect? You're occupying them, completely forgetting, of course, that we'd left in 2005. So the demonization happened even before we even went in, and anybody was dead on the other side.
First of all, I don't think you fully had 4 days. The thing started up more or less instantly, and according to some, there were tip-offs that this was about to happen. Black Lives Matter, immediately raced to celebrate the paragliders. So I don't think you had that much as a pure honeymoon. You had a hybrid situation where many of the advanced institutions in the West that have been losing credibility came to your defense, but you mismanaged that. And, look, you feel free to disagree with me, but my point is that this situation should be very confusing to you, that a group of people hold hostages, are chanting from the river to the sea, clearly indicating that they want to kill you. And this is highly popular with people who are young and have very little life experience, where nobody has any knowledge of what actually happened in the region. And you have a narrative where you're saddled with being a European colonial project. And clearly, we're staying in near the Carmel Market. It's kind of bizarre. This is one of the most diverse groups of people around. Somehow you have not figured out how to shake this narrative despite the advanced capabilities. You're very bad at PR and you're very bad at communicating a situation, and it's probably the more important component relative to Israel's fearsome military might.
I completely agree with you, and I've been shouting from the rooftops to whoever would listen to me in the government that we are fighting this hybrid war, as you say, and we're completely unprepared for the communications, for the PR, for the comms of this war. They've also got 30 years ahead of us in this. I mean, when you think about 40?
I'm not sure what you're saying. Why do you decide? They're not that far ahead of you. You're just not.
Qatar hasn't been poisoning the minds of academia and press for the last 20 years?
You're just not putting your shoulder to the wheel.
I agree.
My feeling about this is that I know individuals who are having more effect than the state. And, I kept saying, is no one going to call any of us? You have all sorts of people with very large... No, look, you just have to take it. You screwed up. Period, the end, zeze. That's it. And if you don't admit that you screwed up and you don't give the devil his due, you're not going to advance. And so that's not what Jews do. You learn from your mistakes.
You're 100% correct. And the problem, I think, is that there's just no strategy here when it comes to comms, at least. And many other people would say there's no strategy at all in this country.
I think that in part you got very confused on October 6th. Think about what you were arguing over on October 6th. You thought you were in Europe. You're not in Europe.
Exactly.
I don't know how to explain it, but the fact is, I'm going to get myself kicked out of this country within the time that I'm here. But
this is what we live for.
But from my perspective, they're just a series of catastrophic errors where Israel failed to see itself accurately and failed to use the tools that it had when it was attacked in a brutal fashion. And by the way, it's not like I'm just blinded with love for Israel. You say you left, with Ariel Sharon making the choice to exit Gaza, but you still control the borders. They don't have the ability to freely do whatever they want. So you have to actually engage with the argument. And one of the things that I keep arguing for, which I think you're not going to love, is engaging with the deep critique and showing that you can survive it, that you can listen to the arguments, and you can say, there's a kernel of truth here, and this is not without merit, but, however, and that will boost the credibility, because, quite honestly, you're not pure as the driven snow.
No,
but the predominant argument still favors Israel, and it would be great to advance to the point where Israel can realize that all nations have a budget. You have a budget for brutality. You have a budget for failure. You have a budget for hypocrisy. And my feeling is that considering that this incredibly diverse country in one of the most dangerous and crazy regions came out of absolutely nowhere, it's not that you're as pure as you claim to be. It's that you're under your budget, which is a miracle. But you do commit very brutal acts, and you do act strategically, as all nations do. Now you've allowed this idea, well, the Jews are behaving strategically, Israel's so tricky, this, that, and the other thing. You're trying to minimize collateral damages, so you do this pager attack, Okay, but you're still getting saddled with the idea that you're being crafty, And in a certain sense, what I say is you can survive the truth. The truth is actually your friend, but the truth has to be presented in an attractive way. And I think that you're under your budget, given how difficult this place is a miracle. Yeah, but let's be honest about it.
Absolutely.